What if the trash sitting in your home right now could transform your tiny garden into a vibrant mini village? Not with expensive tools. Not with complicated builds. Just pure creativity, recycled materials, and ideas that anyone, anywhere, can do. Today, we're taking recycled bottles, old tires, and scrap metal, and turning them into a colorful tiny trash-to-border village that completely reshapes how small yards should look. Welcome to Mind Over Decoration, where small spaces aren't limitations, they're opportunities. In this video, you'll explore realistic DIY ideas, step-by-step inspirations, and clever ways to turn discarded items into a backyard worth showing off. And if you have questions or want help adjusting a design for your space, leave a comment, we always read them. If any idea sparks inspiration, please recreate it with what you have and make it your own. Before we begin, I want to share something with you. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content, there's a real story, and a real family. This isn't just a video. It's a piece of my heart. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. When you hit that subscribe button, you're not just helping a creator grow. You're helping a dream stay alive. You're giving a small family hope, one click at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. In tiny backyards across the world, people often feel limited by space, unsure how to add personality or color without spending much. But sometimes, the most magical transformations begin with the most unexpected materials, old tires headed for the landfill. That was exactly where my inspiration for the Animal Tire Guardians border began. I imagined a whimsical row of colorful creatures watching over a tiny garden, each one crafted entirely from discarded rubber. They wouldn't just decorate the space, they would bring it to life. The first creature I made was an owl. I sliced the tire, curved the wings outward, and used scrap plastic to carve detailed feathers. When sunlight hit its turquoise and yellow paint, it suddenly felt alive. Next came the rabbit, with long ears reaching playfully upward and a belly full of blooming geraniums. It instantly became the children's favorite guardian in the yard. As the border grew, so did the charm. The fox, with bright orange paint and a watchful expression, seemed to guard the tiny pathway. A frog perched proudly beside a lavender patch, its glossy bottle cap eyes shining. Even the hedgehog, made from a worn tire and wooden spikes, added a gentle rustic feel. Each character looked as though it had stepped out of a storybook and decided to settle in the garden. What made this project truly special was not just how cute the guardians looked, but how accessible they were. Every piece was crafted from trash, materials anyone could find. Yet when arranged along the garden border, they created a vivid, joyful world that felt handcrafted, intentional, and full of personality. Visitors who saw the garden couldn't believe the animals were made from old tires. And that's the beauty of upcycling, turning what's forgotten into something unforgettable. idea for the bottle brick border houses began on a quiet afternoon while sorting through recycling bins. As I held a clear plastic bottle in my hand, I wondered, what if this could become something more than trash? And in that moment, the vision of a tiny border village came to life, bright, charming, and full of character, built entirely from discarded plastic bottles. I started by choosing bottles with interesting shapes. Some had gentle curves, others had sharp ridges, each one offering a different architectural possibility. After cutting one side flat so the bottle could rest securely on the soil, I painted the first tiny house in soft mint green. Adding windows and doors with small, careful brush strokes brought surprising personality to such a simple material. Soon, one bottle became two, then three, and before long, an entire miniature neighborhood began to form. Each house took on its own style. One became a cottage with a curved roof made from scrap plastic, another transformed into a tiny lighthouse with a bottle cap chimney. A few were painted with brick textures, creating the look of old European village homes. At night, a handful of transparent houses glowed softly with tiny solar lights inside, giving the garden border a magical warmth. As I lined them up along the edge of the tiny backyard, something enchanting happened. The space felt alive. What used to be an ordinary garden bed suddenly looked like a whimsical storybook lane. Kids visiting the garden bent down to inspect the tiny houses, imagining who might live in them. Adults couldn't help but smile at the creativity. But the best part? Every piece of this miniature village came from waste, plastic bottles that once held drinks, ready to be thrown away. Upcycling them didn't just beautify the garden, it turned forgotten trash into artwork with real charm and purpose. And as the bottle village continues to grow, so does the sense of wonder it brings. The Sodican lighthouse path markers began as a simple experiment. Could a discarded aluminum can become something beautiful enough to light a garden path? The moment I cleaned the first soda can and placed it upright, the idea struck me instantly. Its tall shape, its smooth cylindrical body, and its light weight made it the perfect foundation for a miniature lighthouse. And suddenly, the entire theme of a glowing coastal pathway for tiny yards was born. I started by painting the first can white, then carefully adding red stripes the way real lighthouses look along windy ocean cliffs. Once the paint dried, the aluminum surface captured the sunlight beautifully, casting soft reflections that made the miniature structure feel alive. I added windows, a tiny door, and finally, a bottle cap lantern top that held a small solar LED light. As evening arrived, that little light flickered on, and it was magical. Encouraged, I made more. A navy one with a golden beacon, a distressed teal lighthouse that looked vintage, and a bright yellow one that brought playful energy to the garden. Each lighthouse had its own personality. Some stood on small rock platforms. Others were surrounded by seashells or tiny painted wave designs. And with every lighthouse added to the path, the backyard slowly transformed into a glowing miniature coastline. Children who visited loved following the tiny lights as they guided them along the walkway. Adults were amazed that the structures were once soda cans, something usually tossed aside without a second thought. The combination of soft evening light, vibrant paint, and handcrafted details turned the tiny garden into a warm, inviting night scene. What made the project even more meaningful was how accessible it was. Anyone, anywhere, could recreate this: a few soda cans, a bit of paint, and imagination. And in the end, These little lighthouses didn't just mark a path, they told a story of how simple trash can become something enchanting. The idea for the car-rim deep planter towers arrived unexpectedly one afternoon while cleaning out an old garage. Rusty car rims were stacked in a corner, heavy, unused, and moments away from being taken to the scrapyard. But as sunlight hit their circular frames, the thought emerged, these could hold plants. These could be beautiful. And in that moment, the concept came alive. Car rims, with their thick metal structure and deep center, are surprisingly perfect for planters. They're durable, weatherproof, and naturally designed to support weight. After cleaning the first rim, I filled it with soil and planted bright marigolds. The contrast between the industrial metal and the soft, vibrant flowers was captivating. It looked powerful yet gentle, full of character. Encouraged, I created more. Some rims I painted in bold colors, turquoise, yellow, navy, while others I left raw to showcase their aged, rustic charm. When stacked into towers, the rims transformed into stunning vertical gardens. Suddenly, small yards that once lacked space had a way to grow more flowers, herbs, and succulents in a compact footprint. One tower became a succulent sculpture, with pastel sedum spilling over the edges. Another became an herb station filled with rosemary and basil, releasing fragrance every time someone brushed past. A tall three-tier tower near a garden path bloomed lavender at the top, calendula in the middle, and trailing flowers at the base, like a living waterfall of color. Visitors couldn't believe these elegant, artistic planters were once dirty car parts. The weight of the metal ensured they stayed steady even in strong winds. Their depth allowed roots to grow freely, making plants thrive better than in many store-bought pots. What started as old forgotten rims turned into something inspiring, functional art that brought life to tiny spaces. Upcycling them wasn't just practical, it was transformative. It proved that beauty doesn't require perfection, just imagination. The inspiration for the plastic jug fairy greenhouse pods came during early spring, when small seedlings struggled to survive the chilly evenings in the backyard. Traditional greenhouses were too large for a tiny yard, but seedlings needed protection. That's when the idea struck, what if small, discarded plastic jugs could become tiny protective homes for plants? Not just functional, but magical. The first jug I picked up was a clear water container. After cutting a smooth opening and shaping the top into a dome, I placed a small succulent inside and watched how the sunlight gently filtered through the plastic. Within hours, small droplets formed along the inside walls, creating a natural humid environment, perfect for fragile plants. It was like a miniature world, a tiny greenhouse pod with its own climate. Soon, I began experimenting. An old oil jug became a greenhouse with a ventilation flap. Another jug turned into a fairy cottage with hand-painted vines and tiny window shapes. Each pod felt like a miniature home with personality, while still serving a vital purpose, protecting seedlings from wind, sudden rain, and cold. One of the most delightful discoveries was how well herbs grew inside. Basil thrived in the warmth, mint held its shape better, and thyme remained fragrant. The pods captured just enough sunlight to encourage strong growth while providing a barrier from pests. Children who visited loved peeking inside the tiny greenhouses, amazed at the miniature worlds forming within. Adults were surprised by how such a simple upcycling project could make gardening easier, especially in small spaces. Tiny yards that once struggled to grow anything now had thriving seedlings. Using jugs not only reduced waste, but also allowed gardeners to create as many pods as they needed, lightweight, portable, and endlessly customizable. And every time new seeds sprouted inside one, it felt like discovering a new fairy realm. What began as trash became tiny sanctuaries, fairy greenhouse pods that brought life and beauty to even the smallest gardens. The old tire pond plus bloom ring idea was born from a desire to bring movement and serenity into a tiny garden without using expensive materials or large space. One day, while sorting through discarded items, my eyes landed on an old, worn-out tire. Suddenly, the shape of the tire resembled the perfect frame for a small pond. The concept felt almost too simple, but sometimes the best ideas are. I began by painting the interior of the tire a deep, calming blue, knowing it would help reflect the sky and enhance the clarity of the water. After lining it properly and filling it with clean water, I added a few smooth stones and placed floating lily pads on the surface. The transformation was instant. The backyard felt quieter, softer, almost enchanted. To elevate the design, I planted flowers in a full ring around the pond: marigolds, pansies, petunias, lavender. Their colors created a living border, making the pond look like it was blooming out of the earth. As the flowers grew thicker, the entire setup looked like a tiny oasis, blending water, metal, stone, and nature into a harmonious display. Children were fascinated, peeking into the pond to spot tiny fish or watch insects landing on the water. Adults were amazed that something so charming had once been trash. The pond attracted butterflies, birds, and even dragonflies, turning the tiny garden into a quiet sanctuary of life. Experimenting further led to creative variations: dual ponds with cascading water, fairy-themed ponds with miniature bridges, rustic ponds with natural moss. Each version had its own personality, yet all shared the same foundation: an old tire given a new purpose. What started as simple upcycling became an art form, a way to bring tranquility to even the smallest outdoor spaces. And every time sunlight dances on the water, it feels like a reminder that beauty can rise from what we once considered waste. The DIY trash-to-totem garden posts were born from a desire to add height, personality, and storytelling into small outdoor spaces without spending much, or anything at all. Totems have been used across cultures to symbolize identity, creativity, and meaning. But in a tiny yard, the challenge was creating something tall yet lightweight, expressive yet simple. The solution came from the recycling bin. It started with a single plastic bottle painted in bright colors. When stacked on top of another, the tower began to resemble a playful sculpture. Adding a wooden stick at the center created stability, and suddenly, a garden totem was standing proudly next to the flower bed. The concept felt powerful: simple trash transformed into a vertical piece of art. From there, the possibilities expanded. Soda cans were cut and shaped into spirals, stars, and rings that reflected sunlight beautifully. Jar lids became round decorative discs. Scrap wood added texture and warmth. Each piece contributed a different visual flavor, and together they formed tall, joyful structures that drew the eye upward, perfect for small gardens that need visual height. One totem held a theme of ocean blues and whites, another was a rainbow stack with bottle caps glued into patterns. Some were whimsical and childlike, others rustic and earthy. People who visited the yard often assumed these totems were store-bought sculptures, surprised to learn they were crafted from waste. What made the project truly meaningful was how personal each totem could become. Every color, shape, and layer told a story of creativity, of sustainability, of reclaiming space and beauty from forgotten materials. And in a tiny yard, these totems acted as focal points, guiding the eye through the garden and giving structure to small planting areas. As the sun moved across the sky, the totems cast playful shadows and caught specks of light on their surfaces. At night, the solar-lit versions glowed softly like lanterns. They didn't just decorate the garden, they animated it. Trash had become art, and the garden became a gallery. The bottle cap mosaic edging strip idea began during a simple cleanup day, when a large box of old bottle caps, plastic and metal, was ready to be thrown away. Their colors were bright, textures interesting, and shapes perfectly uniform. Suddenly, it felt wrong to discard them. In that moment, the vision appeared: what if these small, forgotten circles could become a vibrant mosaic lining the garden? The first step was collecting caps of various colors. Sorting them into groups, reds, blues, greens, yellows, felt like organizing paint on a palette. The garden bed was the canvas. One cap became 10, then 50, and soon hundreds were forming patterns that popped against the soil. The transformation was astonishing. A dull garden edge suddenly exploded with color, like a handcrafted tile design but made entirely from waste. One mosaic strip resembled a rainbow pathway, guiding visitors through the small yard. Another strip took the shape of flowers, each petal made from carefully aligned caps. A more rustic design mixed metal caps with brightly colored plastic ones, creating depth and contrast. Children especially loved helping sort and place the caps, turning the project into a creative family activity. The beauty didn't lie solely in the colors, it was in the texture. Each cap had tiny ridges, scratches, or faded paint, adding character to the mosaic. Under sunlight, they caught subtle glimmers, creating a lively visual dance along the garden border. Even in tiny gardens, the strips provided energy, structure, and personality without taking up planting space. What made the project especially meaningful was how it turned an everyday waste item into functional art. Bottle caps don't decompose easily, but here they found a new purpose, lasting, colorful, and joyful. The mosaic edging became more than decoration. It became a conversation starter, a testimony to creativity, and a reminder of the beauty that can emerge from mindful upcycling. Every time someone walked past the garden and smiled, the caps had done their job. The idea for the recycled plastic bottle root wall terraces emerged out of necessity. Many tiny yards lack planting space, especially when the ground is uneven or sloped. Traditional retaining walls can be expensive, heavy, and difficult to install. But one day, while looking at a stack of plastic bottles waiting for recycling, the thought appeared, these are strong. These hold shape. Could they hold soil too? And just like that, a new form of upcycled landscaping began. The first experiment was simple, filling bottles with compacted soil and laying them horizontally. To my surprise, they formed a stable base that didn't shift, even when watered. Layer upon layer, the wall grew taller, creating a small terrace that reclaimed usable planting space in an area previously too slanted for anything to grow. Clear bottles revealed roots weaving inside like natural sculptures. Painted bottles created decorative borders that looked handcrafted and artistic. Each bottle contributed strength while adding visual character to the garden. Soon, the terraces became a canvas for creativity. Some sections were used to grow herbs like basil and rosemary, thriving in the elevated beds. Others were filled with colorful flowers, petunias, lobelias, lavender, spilling over the edges like a soft waterfall of blooms. The tiered design allowed sunlight to reach every plant evenly, an advantage in tiny gardens where shadows often steal space. Visitors were amazed that the structure was not only functional but also made entirely from waste. The bottles held firm during heavy rains, resisted erosion, and provided excellent drainage. They transformed an unused corner into a productive and beautiful planting zone. The project became more than upcycling, it became problem-solving through creativity. It proved that even in the smallest gardens, vertical thinking can multiply space. What started as trash became architecture. What began as an idea became a thriving terrace of life, rooted in resourcefulness. The tin can hanging border fence began with a simple observation: in tiny gardens, the fence is often wasted space. It stands there quietly, offering structure but contributing nothing to the garden's beauty or life. One afternoon, while preparing to recycle a few empty tin cans, the idea suddenly clicked: what if the fence could bloom? The first step was cleaning and painting a single tin can. A bright coat of turquoise paint transformed it instantly, turning something dull and disposable into something cheerful. When filled with soil and a small flowering plant, the can took on new purpose. Hanging it on the fence felt like adding a splash of life to an otherwise empty wall. Soon, multiple cans joined the first: lavender, mint, coral, sunflower yellow. Each can held different plants, creating a dynamic vertical garden that thrived even in the smallest spaces. Herbs like basil and rosemary released fragrance every time someone walked past. Cascading lobelia spilled over the edges like waterfalls of color. Bright petunias added bursts of pink and purple. What made the project special was how accessible it was. Tin cans are everywhere, lightweight, durable, and perfectly sized for small plants. By using a simple hook or rope, they could hang anywhere: fences, railings, balconies. The transformation required almost no money but created high visual impact. Children loved decorating their own cans, adding doodles or patterns, turning them into personalized garden art. Adults appreciated how the cans created height, structure, and color without taking up ground space. Even at night, when solar fairy lights wove through the cans, the fence glowed softly as if alive. This project didn't just beautify the garden, it redefined how to use space. It reminded us that vertical surfaces are opportunities waiting to bloom, and that even small, forgotten objects can become meaningful parts of a garden story. The fence no longer stood quietly. It sang with color. The plastic container vegetable corner emerged from a common challenge faced in tiny yards. How do you grow real, abundant vegetables in a space that barely fits a chair? Traditional garden beds take up room, and raised beds can be costly. But one afternoon, while organizing old storage tubs, plastic crates, and leftover containers, a simple idea came to life. Use these forgotten items to build a compact, thriving vegetable haven. The first experiment was with a shallow plastic storage box. After filling it with rich soil and planting lettuce seeds, the results were astounding. The container held moisture well, provided enough depth for root growth, and fit perfectly into a tight corner that once served no purpose. Encouraged, I added a second container for herbs, basil, cilantro, parsley. The scents alone made the space feel alive. Soon, the corner transformed into a structured layout of reused plastic containers, each dedicated to a different vegetable. Deep tubs held tomatoes and peppers. Small buckets grew chives and spinach. Cut plastic jugs served as labeled pots for quick-growing greens. Even stackable bins allowed vertical expansion, making it possible to grow more in less space. What surprised visitors most was the abundance. The vegetables thrived, looking even healthier than in traditional beds. The plastic retained warmth during cooler seasons and protected roots. Watering was easy and efficient. Harvesting felt like plucking produce from a miniature farm built entirely out of reclaimed materials. Children enjoyed helping plant seeds, while adults admired how inexpensive, practical, and eco-friendly the concept was. What began as trash became a productive corner bursting with food. And with each harvest, the garden served a quiet reminder: sustainability can be simple, gardening can be compact, and beauty can come from the most ordinary containers. The tiny yard no longer felt limiting. It felt abundant. The idea for the upcycled metal pan and pot mini ponds came from a simple realization: water can transform even the smallest garden into a peaceful sanctuary. But tiny yards often lack space for real ponds, and store-bought water features can be expensive. One day, while sorting old kitchen items, the metallic gleam of an unused skillet caught my eye, and the idea clicked instantly. Could this old pan become a pond? I filled it with water, added a few smooth river stones, and floated a lily pad on top. The effect was immediate and beautiful. The sunlight played gently across the water surface, and the pan's shallow shape made it perfect for tiny aquatic plants. Suddenly, an old kitchen tool had become a living piece of art. The next experiment involved a deeper pot. After placing gravel at the bottom and adding miniature lotus blooms, the pot transformed into a serene bowl of water. The slight patina on the pot added rustic charm, making it feel aged and full of character. Even without a pump, the still water reflected the surrounding flowers, giving the space a calm, reflective atmosphere. Before long, the collection grew: tiered ponds with overflow designs, fairy-style ponds with tiny wooden bridges, and even hanging pots turned into floating gardens. Each version added a different mood, from whimsical to elegant to naturalistic. Surprisingly, these ponds attracted wildlife. Birds visited to drink. Butterflies danced around the flowers. Dragonflies hovered above the water. Visitors loved how the ponds created focal points in such small spaces. They added sound, reflection, movement, and calm, all without requiring a large footprint. And best of all, everything was made from old kitchenware that would have otherwise been thrown away. The ponds turned the garden into a soothing retreat, proving that tranquility doesn't require size, just creativity and a bit of water. Every time sunlight rippled across the surface, it felt like magic rising from discarded metal. The upcycled wire and metal scrap archway idea began with a challenge. How do you give a tiny garden a grand entrance without spending much or occupying precious floor space? The answer came while rummaging through a pile of old metal scraps, bent wires, leftover rods, rusted pieces of rebar. At first glance, they seemed worthless. But when held together, their shapes began forming an unexpected vision. The skeleton of a garden archway. The first prototype was simple, two curved rods joined by twisted wires. Once placed in the soil, it instantly gave structure and height to the garden. Even without plants yet climbing on it, the archway felt like a doorway into a new world. As vines began to grow and wrap themselves around the metal, the arch transformed into a living sculpture. Different scrap pieces brought different personalities. Copper wire added elegance with its warm oxidized tone. Thick rebar created a strong industrial look that contrasted beautifully with soft flowers. Thin steel rods offered a delicate, fairy tale quality, especially when bent into spirals and loops. What once was waste became intricate garden art. One archway became the highlight of the tiny yard, marking the beginning of a narrow walking path lined with blooms. Another served as a frame for jasmine vines, releasing fragrance into the air each evening. A whimsical version carried tiny dangling charms made from bottle caps, tinkling lightly in the wind as sunlight danced across their surfaces. The magic wasn't only in the visuals. The archways gave small gardens the illusion of depth and layers, transforming even the most modest spaces into inviting escapes. Visitors couldn't believe the elegant structures were built from discarded metal. The durability of the materials ensured the archways stood strong through storms, heat, and seasons. At night, when wrapped in tiny solar lights, the archways glowed like portals leading into hidden fairy gardens. They brought structure, beauty, charm, and most importantly, a sense of wonder created entirely from trash. Upcycling had once again proven, imagination is the real tool. The upcycled junk mailbox planter was inspired by a familiar scene, an old mailbox sitting forgotten at the edge of a driveway, slightly dented, rusting, and long replaced by a newer model. Most people would throw it away, but something about its shape felt full of potential. A mailbox is naturally protective, cozy, and full of character. What if it could hold not letters, but life? The first mailbox I repurposed had chipped red paint and a broken door. After cleaning it and filling it with rich soil, I planted petunias inside. Within weeks, the flowers spilled outward like cheerful notes escaping an envelope. The mailbox, once dismissed as junk, became the centerpiece of a tiny garden border. Different mailbox shapes inspired different styles. A teal-painted one became a cradle for trailing ivy. A vintage curved-top mailbox mounted on a wooden post became a succulent sanctuary, its open door displaying a miniature desert landscape. A wooden mailbox turned into an herb garden, offering fragrant rosemary and thyme right at arm's reach. One especially magical creation was a fairy-themed mailbox. Painted with tiny windows and whimsical vines, it looked like a miniature cottage. Pastel flowers grew inside, giving the impression that small woodland creatures might call it home. Children adored it, leaning close to peek inside the tiny opening. The most surprising transformation came at night. A mailbox fitted with small solar lights glowed softly, turning plants into silhouettes and casting warm reflections across the tiny yard. Even from a distance, it looked like a lantern guiding visitors through the garden. Beyond aesthetics, the project had meaning. It turned an American icon of communication into a vessel for life and growth. It honored nostalgia while embracing sustainability. Most importantly, it proved that beautiful planters don't need to be expensive or conventional, they just need imagination. A mailbox once meant to deliver messages now delivered joy, season after season. The idea for the DIY recycled patio bottle lamp path began during a quiet evening outdoors. The tiny patio was peaceful, but something felt missing: warmth, glow, atmosphere. Store-bought garden lamps were pricey, and the space was small, so I needed something lightweight, cheap, and charming. Then I noticed a pile of empty plastic bottles waiting for recycling, and the inspiration hit instantly. The first lamp was simple, a clear bottle filled with solar fairy lights. When placed along the patio edge, it produced a soft golden glow that looked magical against the night air. The bottle's curve scattered the light beautifully, almost like a lantern. That single lamp changed the entire feeling of the garden. From there, the project expanded. Glass bottles with natural color tints, green, blue, amber, created deeper, richer light effects. Painted bottles added artistic flair, glowing from within like tiny stained glass towers. Cut-bottom bottles placed over small LEDs turned into rustic lanterns perfect for lining pathways. One of the most enchanting additions was a hanging bottle lamp suspended from a tree branch. With a rope handle and a solar light inside, it swayed gently in the wind, creating moving patterns of warm light across the patio floor. Even visitors were stunned that such ambience came from trash. As more bottles joined the path, the space transformed. What once was a plain patio now resembled a glowing pathway seen in cozy garden cafes. The best part, the lamps were completely solar-powered, low-maintenance, and weatherproof. Anyone, regardless of space or budget, could recreate the same magic. Children enjoyed watching the lights turn on one by one at sunset. Adults admired the sustainability and charm. And each night, the glowing path served as a reminder: beauty doesn't need to be bought, sometimes, it's hiding in something as ordinary as a bottle. The tiny yard became a sanctuary of light, crafted entirely by imagination and upcycling.